John Crowe Ransom's The New Criticism was published in 1941. It is a foundational text in 20th century literary studies and represents the formal articulation of the movement later identified as New Criticism. In his work, Ransom argues for a rigorous, disciplined, and text centered approach to literary interpretation that rejects the dominance of historical, biographical, and moralistic methods. The poem is not an auxiliary document to history or psychology, but an autonomous aesthetic object that demands a specialized form of study. The book emerges as both a critique of existing scholarly pieces and a proposal for the professionalization of criticism within the academy. Ransom begins by examining the state of literary criticism and arguing that it lacks methodological precision. In contrast to the sciences and social sciences, where models and procedures are clearly established, English studies are marked by inconsistency and a reliance on personal impressions. Literary criticism must develop its own professional standards and adopt a systematic method, an argument that sets the stage for the emergence of close reading as the dominant interpretive practice of mid century American criticism. Throughout the book, Ransom introduces his influential distinction between structure and texture. Structure refers to a poem's logical content, its ideas, arguments, and conceptual propositions. Texture denotes the concrete sensory, emotional, and stylistic elements that give the poem its particularity, rhythm, imagery, tone, irony, and sonic patterns. A successful poem is one which structure and texture exist in a productive tension and mutual dependence. If a poem is too abstract, it collapses into mere philosophy. If it is too decorative, it becomes sentimental and ornamental. This idea becomes one of the major touchstones of new critical doctrine and lays the groundwork for later concepts such as paradox, ambiguity, organic unity, and the careful balancing of oppositional forces within a poem. Modern literary study has been distorted by external approaches that treat literature as something other than art. Historical scholarship regards literature as evidence of cultural epochs. Moralistic criticism focuses on ethical instruction. Biographical criticism searches for authorial psychology. While he acknowledges that these perspectives may offer supplementary insights, he maintains that they do not address the poem's essence. For literature to be respected as a distinct discipline, criticism must be confined to the internal analysis of literary form. His discussion of aesthetic experience reinforces this position. Ransom draws a distinction between aesthetic and practical thought, insisting that the value of literature lies in its capacity to present experience in a heightened, refined, and formally ordered way. Poetry is not meant to be useful in any pragmatic sense. Its purpose is to intensify perception through the disciplined interplay of structure and texture. By emphasizing the aesthetic over the moral or utilitarian, Ransom challenges the then dominant view that literature exists primarily to teach or uplift readers. Ransom also critiques aspects of modernist poetry. Though he respects the modernist innovative spirit, he expresses concern that their radical experimentation sometimes disrupts the necessary balance between conceptual clarity and sensory richness. Extreme departures from traditional form may undermine the coherence of the poem, making it resistant to critical analysis and aesthetic appreciation. This concern reflects his broader belief in the need for discipline, formal control, and structural unity in poetry. The book culminates in a definition of the critic's role. The critic is neither historian nor moral philosopher, but a trained interpreter who analyzes the internal organization of a poem. The critic's task is to trace the interaction of structure and texture, to uncover tensions and resolutions and to articulate how the poem achieves aesthetic unity. This emphasis on internal form, autonomy, and close reading becomes the hallmark of new criticism and shapes the pedagogical practices of literature departments for decades.